Hello. Good morning. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Iscaro. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you today to present a study that we at IHS Markit published with the Global Citizen Foundation. We started this study in 2016. We published the last version last year, in July last year. And the aim of the report is looking at different policy proposals for the Greek economy to achieve long-term sustainable growth. Now, this is quite a technical report. I'm aware it's Sunday morning, but I'm sure everyone had a few coffees already, and I have quite limited time, so I will concentrate on the outcomes of the report, but also I'll also go through some of the proposals that we considered, but were not included in the final proposals, because sometimes, as the phrase says, the journey is as important as the destination, and I think in this case, that proves to be the case. Now, I won't spend too long on this, but I think everyone is aware of where the Greek economy is at the moment. What I should say is that things are improving. The economy grew for the second consecutive year in 2018. Under a baseline, we expect growth to possibly accelerate a little bit this year, remain at around 2.5% in 2020, and then to gradually trend down as the output gap collapses and also external demand decelerates. Now, under a background where the European economy is growing at 1.5, growing at 2.5 is not too bad. But if you look at the Greek position where the economy is still around a quarter below its peak in 2007, unemployment is quite high, the debt ratio is still very elevated, we have issues in the banking sector. So maybe 2.5, it will take at least 10, 20 years to go back to where we were 10 years ago. So what we try to do, we try to, as we say in English, think outside the box and come up with different set of proposals. Now, the obvious place where we started, and this is what I mentioned about talking about the journey and not the destination, we thought, okay, let's see what would happen if taxes come down. I mean, as you know, taxes have been increased as part of the bailout adjustment. When we talk to our clients in Greece, there's many complaints about the level of taxes. So we use our macroeconomic model to see what would happen if three taxes, the VAT, corporate tax, and income tax are cut. We also look at a scenario where social security contributions, employee and employer social security contributions are eliminated. And as all these measures deal with the revenue side of things on the government balance sheet, and we are aware that we have limitations in terms of what can be done on the fiscal space given the high debt level, we look at the spending side of things. Now, I don't have time to go through the details. I'll spare you the details, but there's not a lot of leeway. The obvious item that stood out was pensions, which in 2017 accounted for around 40% of government spending. So what we model a pension reform. I should think another one, because we have three in the last 10 years or so. A pension reform where the retirement age is increased to 67 years of age, and there is a flat pension of 700 euros per month. Now, this doesn't mean that this proposed pension reform needs to be applied in that way. So any reform that yield the savings that we saw on this reform is around 16 billion euros can be considered. But when you look at the spending side of things, it's difficult really to make any more cuts in items if we don't look at the pension side of things. Now, the objective was to come up with a package of policies, but I think it's interesting as well to look at the impact of individual policies on growth and the public finances. One, I wouldn't say surprise, but one result that we saw when we modeled the tax cuts is that the multiplier effect of these tax cuts on growth wasn't that large. And the reasons are different depending on which tax you look at. On VAT, prices go down, that creates a boost for private consumption, but it's a leakage in terms of import growth. Private consumption drives import growth, and also the impact on the public finances is quite strong. Corporate tax, again, it has some implications to growth, mainly through higher investment. We assume that it will boost foreign direct investment and some domestic investment as well. But the fact is that although the corporate tax rate is quite high, or maybe in fact, or maybe because of that, not many companies pay corporate tax. So corporate taxes account for around 4% of government revenue, which means that if you cut them, the impact on activity, even if you account for higher investment, is not that high. Income tax, similar situation, although the tax-free threshold has been coming down. When you cut income tax, that benefits mainly high earners, which have a lower propensity to consumption. Impact on, have a full impact on the government deficit and debt, but the impact on the economy is positive, but limited. Now, when we consider the elimination of social security contributions, we saw that the multiplying effect of growth was much larger through different channels. Employer and employee contributions work in different ways. When you eliminate employee social security contributions, you have an immediate cut in labor cost, which improve competitiveness of the export sector, particularly the service sector, where wages are a larger component of cost. The impact on export growth wasn't that large. Employee contributions, that automatically creates an increase in takeaway pay for wage earners. Now, we didn't assume that that is going to be fully translated into higher income because there's quite a lot of slack in the economy at the moment. So, yes, will be some increase in takeaway pay at the beginning, but in the medium term, it will be translated into a weaker wage growth in the economy. Now, there is a positive impact of this package. So where we consider individual measures, we say, okay, so let's get the measures which are higher multiplied on growth, employee and employee contributions, and combine that with a pension reform, just not to have a public deficit ballooning. So where we have assessed that package, we saw some improvement in the economy, mainly through lower prices, which boost consumption, boost investment. But the increase in investment was limited by the fact that because labor costs were lower, the substitution effect between investment and labor. So there is a increase in growth, but this boost to growth is quite limited. It's just 0.7% above our baseline, and it doesn't really last long. So after the second year, the positive impact goes down to 0.3, 0.1%. So one thing we learn is, okay, lower taxes may help, but given the credit constraints in the economy, given the productive capacity and productive structure of the economy at this stage, may not be enough. So what next? So can we get a magical wand and create growth? Now, so magical wands don't exist, unfortunately, to create growth. But one thing that stood out when we look at what other alternatives we could introduce was the fact that Greece has a quite poor record in attracting foreign direct investment. Even when compared to countries like Spain and Portugal, the stock of foreign direct investment in Greece is one of the lowest in the OECD. It's around 15% of GDP. Portugal and Spain is around 40, 50%. So what we ask ourselves is what would happen if we model an increase in FDI of around 2 billion euros a year, and there's a reason why we went for that value. Firstly, because we think it's realistic, And secondly, because we look at the different multipliers of FDI on the economy. So what would happen if that's the case? The second question is where? So where can we try to target this new FDI? And we try to come up with sectors which are firstly export-oriented, because they will not need a strong domestic demand economy. They will eventually generate, but they don't need it initially. We try to come up with sectors where there's no overcapacity in Europe, that's for obvious reasons. And also we try to come up with sectors which are not, well, where investors will have proper skills here in Greece, and also not too capital intensive for obvious reasons. In sectors where not too capital intensive, investment will realize faster. Now, with all these constraints that we came up with a list of sectors which we think would improve the productive capacity of the economy, will create spillovers to the rest of the economy. And the sectors are on the slide. Hopefully, on the right side of me, you can see the slide. I know the list is quite surprising. I think when I talk to people, many people expect to see agri-sector, agri-food and tourist sectors, but in reality, these sectors are already contributing to the economy. So we try to look at new sectors, and these are mainly mechanical engineering sectors. So although they are surprising, there are sectors where we think that can create spillovers. There are skills in the economy, and also there's quite a strong demand. I'm running out of time, but before that, I will just tell you that when we include the FDI, the impact on growth was stronger, and it was faster, and it was more lasting. The channels, they're mainly investment, but also that creates spillovers to the rest of the economy through higher consumption, lower prices as well. The price implications of these scenarios are not that different to the price implications we have in the previous scenario. Now, I'm not going to pretend, and 30 seconds, yeah? Nothing, okay. I was going to say, there's not much you want to attract FDI. The OECD has produced a lot of work in terms of what measures need to be taken. But if Greece is successful, and we think that we can, then that can change, or that can drive a significant change to the way the Greek economy works. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you.